Lord God, thank you so very much. Guide us away from turtle talk and help us focus on your word. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Names. Give me names. Lot.
John.
A lot. Okay. Cain and Abel. Noah. Jacob. Adam and it was pretty easy for him to find a date. All right.
He had no choice.
Yes, that wasn't much choice. Yes. God, Rachel, Leah, Esau,
Abel.
Jacob, is that indigestion? Oh yeah, that acid reflux. Dinah, blow your horn. Yes. Levi, the inventor of
nice
sandwiches. Judah, Reuben, Gamera. Oh, Tamar. Yeah, I was thinking Gamera. That's a whole different thing. Yes. Yes. Bob, I'm really impressed. He says we're into turtles again.
I watch it all the time.
Oh man. Oh, Gamera. Yeah, the turtle that has stuff shooting out of his. Yeah, and spins. Oh yeah.
I missed that.
Oh, Gamera. That's good. There's a whole bunch of them. You know, always with Japanese kids singing to Gamera. Yeah, because he's a friend of children. Yeah.
I must have been watching.
Oh, Gamera. No, it wasn't. This was a guy in a Gamera suit. Yes, that's right. And he fought some really odd-looking things. All right. So we've been talking about these folks, and you know who they are. Now we're looking at 39. We're in the middle. What's going on when we get to chapter 39? What has happened leading up to 39? Now we know the thing with
38.
Judah and Tamar and
38. 38 was leading up to 39.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. So we've got, but we don't want to think about 38. The 38 is kind of an odd thing. There's a bigger story going on, right?
Joseph is the favorite.
Okay, we got Joseph is whose favorite?
His father.
His father. He is Jacob's favorite, or Israel, depends on, but he's his favorite, right? And Jacob shows that he's the favorite by giving him a coat that has sleeves. Okay, so so Joseph has this coat. Why would Joseph be the favorite? Well, he's young, not the baby. Because who's the baby? Benjamin. But he and Benjamin are brothers, and they're close in age. So they're the two babies. By his favorite wife, by Rachel. So Joseph is the one that's favored. And Joseph, which causes his other brothers kind of to resent him. Joseph also... What's that? Yeah, well, I was going to say, what's the other thing that causes his brothers to kind of resent him? Well, yeah, he's a snitch.
And he was bragging all the time about his future.
Oh, yeah. I have a dream. That all each of you are wheat sheaves, and you're bowing to mine, and the sun and the moon are bowing down to my star, which causes the brothers to dislike him. Yeah. So Joseph is their father's favorite, is a dreamer, an interpreter of dreams, and his brothers decide that they are going to convince him that he should be more modest.
Right.
Yeah. So the brothers in the field, right?
Right.
And the father sends Joseph to his brothers, right?
Right.
And the brothers see him, and the brothers say, "We're going to kill him," right? That'll convince him. Nothing like a little bit of death to change your attitude. And that's when we have this kind of interesting thing, because we have these two traditions that are kind of blending together. One brother steps up and says, because they're going to kill him, one brother steps up and says, "No, let's throw him in a hole. Let's throw him in a cistern, and he'll die there anyway. We just don't want to get blood on our hands. We won't get our hands blood. So we just throw him in there and leave." Okay, and which brother was that? Reuben was one, the oldest. And Reuben's plan was he would come back later and save his brother. And Reuben associated with northern tribes, yada, yada, yada. And so Reuben, they throw him in a cistern, and they're just going to leave him there. But then Judah steps forward. And Judah sees what on the horizon? Okay, a whole bunch of guys riding camels, right? And those guys riding camels happen to be Ishmaelites. A bunch of Ishmaelites are riding camels. And Judah says, "I got an idea, guys. Again, we'll save his brother from dying in the hole. Instead of just leaving him in the hole, why don't we sell him? We'll sell him to these Ishmaelites, and we'll be done with him. But he won't die." Okay? So the brothers say, "That's a pretty good idea. We'll sell him to the Ishmaelites." And they take Joseph off, and the brothers do what?
They killed David.
They kill a goat.
Yes.
They kill a goat, and what do they do with the dead goat?
Yes.
Okay, dip the coat with sleeves in the goat blood, take it back to Dad, and say, "Yes, look at this. Your son was killed by a goat." Which wasn't as dramatic, but kind of, here's the coat with the sleeves, it's got blood on it, and the father says, "Oh, my baby boy, he's
A
gone."
goat.
Yeah, well, they had vicious goats back then.
Big goats back then.
They had huge goats that have teeth, have real teeth like this. It was bad.
Rabbit, that's what he said.
It was bad. So the goat, so gone.
You went to college for that.
Yeah. Yeah. You wanted him to repeat it. All right, so that's what we got, and then we have that little story about Tamar and Judah. And so when we get to chapter 39, we got Joseph going to Egypt, right? And what happens to Joseph when he gets to Egypt? What do the Ishmaelites do? He gets sold. He gets sold. And who purchases Joseph? Potiphar. Okay, and Potiphar is described as what?
Officer of the
Okay, big in Pharaoh's court. He's a captain of the guard. So he's an official in Pharaoh's court. He's pretty high up. And so Potiphar buys him. What does the writer of the story? Because that's what's important. We're listening to what the writer says. Because the writer's going to give us the information he wants us to know. What does the writer say about Joseph after Potiphar buys him? That's it. The Lord was with Joseph. And he'll say it a couple of times in this. The Lord was with Joseph. So the Lord's with him. Potiphar buys him. What is the result of the Lord? Since the Lord was with Joseph. Okay, who becomes successful? Potiphar becomes successful. Because remember, Joseph is what? He's a slave. Okay, now why is it so important for the writer to say repeatedly, the Lord was with Joseph? What's that?
So the readers would know.
Okay, we got protection going on. We've got
Something good's going to happen.
something's good's going to happen.
blessing was
Okay, the blessing. We've got we've got the real primary actor identified. The Lord is with Joseph. So whatever happens, we don't look and say, well, Joseph must have been really smart. No. The writer wants to say, no, the Lord is with Joseph. And even Joseph will say later, it's not because I'm so smart, it's the Lord is with me. This is what the Lord does. All right, so the Lord is with Joseph. The result, though, for Potiphar is that Potiphar starts seeing success, right? And because he starts seeing success, how does Potiphar interpret his success? Yeah, he says, and not just Joseph, but the Lord is with Joseph. So Potiphar recognizes that he recognizes, at least in the story, that his success is grounded on the Lord being with Joseph. What is the writer trying to do for us? This is a writer conveying a message. What does he want us to really understand?
The Lord.
Yeah, the Lord is the one that's behind all of this.
Yeah, now this is the Jewish story, right?
Absolutely.
All right. I've got one question.
Sure.
They certainly knew the Egyptians didn't believe in one God, did they?
Which means, what are we talking about in the story?
Is this an event then?
Yeah, we're talking about a story, right? Mm-hmm. That it is so apparent that even an Egyptian recognizes that the Lord of Lords, whatever, is with Joseph. But it's not historical. So it doesn't say that Potiphar was a worshiper of Isis and believed Isis was with Joseph. That's historical. That's irrelevant to what the writer's doing. The writer wants us, the reader, to really believe that it is the Lord that is protecting Joseph. So, in other words, we're not going to interpret anything that happens as chance, as skill, as happenstance, coincidence. The writer doesn't want any of that to be used. It's like if you're reading a book, any kind of book, the writer is going to want us to interpret the characters in a certain way. And that's what he wants us to do here. That the character of Joseph is carrying the presence of God. And we see that demonstrated throughout the story. So even Potiphar sees the Lord is with him. And because of that, what does Potiphar do? Okay, promotes.
So he keeps him right by his side.
Exactly. Which is not.
You're moving to this office now, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. Puts him in charge of his whole household, which really wasn't unusual for slaves. In the ancient world, because slavery, the slavery practiced in America later, was a really different kind of slavery than what we see in the ancient world. It really was. The Roman emperors often had their slaves, or the Roman senators and officials and wealthy had slaves running their household, because usually you became a slave when you lost. When your people lost a war, then everybody became slaves, or the important people became slaves. So you had the best and the brightest, as slaves, which is good because they know how to manage households. That's the kind of person you want, as a slave. It's not just working in a field. Okay? So anyway, Joseph is put in charge of Potiphar's house, and as he is in charge of Potiphar's house, what's the result? What's that? Well, before we get into terms, because that's kind of what's going on, everything Potiphar does.
Isn't that what you said down in the office?
All he does is eat food.
Yes. Joseph does everything, but Potiphar. Now, if he's captain of the guard, then he's got a military background. So this isn't a mushy, squishy guy, But everything he touches turns to gold, and he knows. Joseph knows. He knows it's because of the Lord. And Joseph is in charge. In fact, he's in charge of everything. He's in charge of everything. Okay? Now that's kind of interesting because he was, that dream about everybody, his family bowing down, and then he gets knocked down, right? And becomes a slave, sold out of a hole, and becomes a slave. And now he's rising up and is in charge of everything that Potiphar owns. Now, the writer tells us what else about Joseph. He is good looking. He is a good looking guy. He's handsome and good looking. Visualize a young Donny Osmond. A young Donny Osmond. He is. Yes, well. Now, why would I go to Donny Osmond?
I don't know.
He's kind of innocent.
Because when they revived Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Donny Osmond played Joseph. Yes. So there you go. So anyway, he's young and handsome. Okay? Who notices Donny?
Mary.
Okay, Potiphar's wife. And Potiphar's wife is subtle. Because she says, yes.
She got right to the point.
I did a wedding. I did a wedding on Sunday. And no, it was what I said. And you say things and you just don't know. We were, do you know Beatty Park? Yeah. I didn't know. I've never been there before. Is it Beatty or Beatty?
Beatty.
Beatty. Because it's B-E-A. And I thought it was a long E. Beatty Park. Beatty Park. And anyway, doing the wedding, I've never been there. And I'll tell you, that's kind of spooky to go into. It kind of looks like a graveyard, with the broken, entrance and all. And I was going to this wedding, and a guy, I didn't know, I'd never been there before. And I didn't know I was going to marry a couple, of course, because having one person
You're
would
going
not
to marry
be
one
fun.
person.
But there was a guy, as I was driving, parked on the side, in one of those things. So I pulled next to him and rolled down my window because I wanted to know where the couple was, where we. And I said, are you Michael? That's what it was, because the groom was Michael. I said, are you Michael? He said, no, but I know Mike. And I said, oh, is it Mike getting married? And he said, no. I think he was just selling drugs. It wasn't a big deal. So he said, there are people further in. And I said, okay, thank you. And I drove and I found him. Anyway, she was in her wedding dress and he was in a nice sharkskin suit. I mean, it was good. It was a nice suit. And I said, to the dress is nice, but man, that is a good suit you're wearing. And she says, I said, where do you want to get married? And there was a group there. And she said, well, I don't want to get married in the grass, because we had a shelter. And she said, I want to go in the grass because, she had high heels and there's sandal kind of things. I don't want to do that. And I kind of smiled and said, she said, why don't we do it somewhere else? And I kind of smiled because immediately that old Beatles song hit. And I wish I hadn't said it. But, it was a song I was thinking. I said, that reminds me of a Beatles song. Let's do it in the road. And I was thinking, the wedding service. And then as soon as the words were coming out of my mouth, I said, whoa, this is really not appropriate. And she kind of looked, and he said, well, that's not a bad idea. And so that's where we kind of set up and did our thing. But, yeah. Well, anyway, that's what Potiphar's wife said.
Let's do it.
Let's do it in the road.
That's where John Lennon got the title.
Well, it's on the White Album. My gosh, we got getting really old. So anyway, Joseph responds just like any young man would respond. Of course. He says, yeah. He says, no, I will not. You know, I'm not. He's been good to me. He's put me in charge of everything except you. Okay. Anyway, it would be, how could I possibly sin against God? Right? And so right there, the writer is telling us something about Joseph's character. Right. Okay. And the character is pretty good. And he understands. But again, this is put in the context of God. Right? God is with him. This would be violating, his relationship with God. And this is something I had a huge problem with when I was younger. What does Potiphar's wife do? Yeah, continues to and I... Yeah, usually it was me calling. Please go out with me. I guess I shouldn't have said, let's do it in the road. That probably should have been a better line than that. But so she keeps on. And he keeps on doing what?
Saying no.
I will not, no. And finally what happens? Well, yeah, he's alone with her in the house. And she says to him,
much like that turtle downstairs.
Well, no, just the opposite of what was happening in the turtle downstairs.
Sex.
Yeah. So she says, Joseph, there's a spider in here. Come get the spider.
Should have called you.
And John comes in, and Joseph comes in. And she comes in and he says, where's the spider? And she says, yeah, right here. Yeah, See, this is why I didn't date that much. Because this is the flirtation. Right here. And it says, and Joseph says, oh my gosh, this is terrible. There's no spider here. yeah. Oh, done. And what?
I said, no wonder I can't get a date. Look at the mice you're giving me.
Well, try the spider. Try the spider.
Let's do it in the road, right?
That's good. But he's there. She's there, on her chaise lounge, laying there, eating
Grapes.
Okay, grapes are good. Eating grapes. Yeah, figs. Or maybe scarfing down oysters. And she's there, and he says, "Oh my gosh, I'm out of here." And she says, "Wait a minute." Grabs him and
feeds him oysters.
Yes. He runs out, sans clothes. Yeah, but he's running out naked. Naked. He is starkest as he's running out of the house. Yeah. Thank you, John. Close your eyes and visualize Donny Osmond. Right. Yeah.
And that is wrong.
It's wrong. It's wrong. And it's wrong everywhere. It's actually illegal in Utah. It is. It is actually illegal in Utah. But so he runs out of the house with, Starka. She's got his clothes in his hand, right? And evidently this is creating a ruckus because people start coming and
start seeing,
start saying, what's wrong? What's going on here? And she's holding, and she says, look, he was what?
He was
going to assault me. He assaulted me, and I screamed
Bloody murder.
bloody murder, and he ran away, and I've got proof.
He had his clothes.
I got his clothes. I got his clothes. All right. Now, is this true? No. Of course it's not true. We know. We know it's not true, right? Because we're the reader, and the writer has told us that this is not true, right? But the people who were there in the room say,
Oh, yes. It was.
it's true. And then when Potiphar comes home, she tells Potiphar, and Potiphar says, And the thing is, Donnie is still buck naked outside, which is hard to explain in and of itself.
But is he going to give up all his good fortune
Well, see,
for his wife?
yes.
Hard choice.
Yeah, we don't want to go into that. But she says, and Potiphar says, that's it. I'm not just going to fire you because you can't fire a slave.
Yeah.
You are, because I am captain of Pharaoh's guard, which we don't know the significance of that yet, but we will later. Since I'm captain of Pharaoh's guard, I'm sending you to Pharaoh's jail, right? Where Pharaoh throws his prisoners. So I'm not sending you to the county jail. I'm sending you to the
Big house.
the penitentiary, right? The Theban penitentiary. I don't know. So Joseph is thrown in the deepest dungeon there because Potiphar is really, really ticked. But
God's still
the Lord is
with Joseph.
with him. And it's kind of interesting because Potiphar, it says Potiphar could see the Lord was with him and promoted him. But in jail, so we've got this roller coaster, right? Joseph is high, brothers bringing down low. So to Potiphar throws him in jail, down low. Now, what happens to the jailer?
He becomes prosperous.
But what's interesting is, it says the Lord did it to the jailer. Potiphar could see that the Lord was with Joseph, but here the Lord actually enables the jailer to see. So God is more actively involved with the jailer. It's not just he doesn't just see it, the Lord gave him the sight, the ability to see. And what does the jailer do? Puts him in charge, right? So now Joseph is in charge of the jail. He becomes a trustee, right? Kind of a head trustee in the jail. And evidently things are going well in the jail. And the jailer puts Joseph in charge, and we see again who's the actor, who's driving this story. The Lord is driving this story. Now, what happens as the chief jailer puts Joseph in charge? What ends up happening to the jail? Every day it prospers. I don't know how a jail prospers. They're producing more license plates. So every chariot now has a license plate because they become very productive. I don't know.
Trying in this country.
Yeah. But anyway, we're at chapter 39. Joseph is what? Kind of going back up. But, being a trustee in jail is not exactly playing the palace. Right? Okay. In chapter 40, he is in jail. And what happens outside of the jail that's going to impact Joseph? Okay. The Pharaoh gets ticked off with his butler and his baker. Okay. And we don't know why. Doesn't tell us why. He's just mad at him. Defends him in some way. and does what to him?
Throws him in jail.
Throws him into jail. And they're in jail. Yes, and the jailer puts Joseph sort of in charge because he's trustee, puts him in charge of the butler and the baker. And what happens to them both?
They become prosperous, I would guess.
Well, he doesn't say about them being prosperous, but he does say something does happen with them.
They're put in the custody of the chief guy who was Potiphar.
Okay, well, and Joseph is sort of overseeing them, right? Both of these guys have a dream. Ooh, the plot thickens. Both the butler and the baker have this dream. And I want you to notice how, and I keep on emphasizing it, but I think it's worth it. This is, we read it and oh, it's a nice story. This is an ancient story. This is really a skilled writer. This creating tension and developing characters and motivations and plot. This is a very sophisticated story. These are not dumb people writing this. Even though this is written, this would have been written a good 3,000 years ago. This is good stuff. Okay? So we got two dreams, right?
Especially interpreted by you.
Well, but this is what the Hebrew says.
Well,
So I mean, it's got some good stuff going on here. Okay, so we've got and what does Joseph see? Because he's in charge of them, right? So he sees them every day, gives them their tin plates, their stuff that they slop on the plate, and they give it to him. And, he gives it to them, and he notices. Both of them are.
Upset.
Yeah, they're troubled. Sad. Yeah, well, they're just kind of confused. Oh, my Lord. Yeah. Well, and he says to them,
What's your problem?
what's going on? And they say, I didn't sleep well last night. I had a dream. And he left out the third person in this group that had a dream. Because he dreamt that he was, his first day of school, he showed up in his underwear. And Joseph said, there's no interpretation for that one. You just got to live with it. And so then he's going down to the big dreams, right? And he says, okay, now, funny that you had dreams and you can't interpret them. Because
I can.
God can. Because that's what he said. He said, it's not me, but God can interpret dreams. Now, we know what?
That Joseph is God with Joseph.
God is with Joseph. So if Joseph interprets the dreams and Joseph says only God can do it, then God must be with Joseph, right? So telling him what to say. So it's not that, Joseph is skilled at dream interpretation. God is with him. So he says, tell me, if you want to hear your interpretation of the dreams, tell me. And who decides to speak first?
The chief butler.
Okay, the butler. The butler speaks first. And what is the butler's dream? Okay, he says they're a vine with 3 branches, right? And they have grapes on it. And what does he do? He presses the grapes, and the juice goes into Pharaoh's cup, and he gives it to Pharaoh. Okay. And he says, okay, Joseph says, what? Okay. I'm going to give you an interpretation. Not me, it's God. In 3 days, what's going to happen? Okay, Pharaoh's going to call you. Gosh, this is really good because, we got a little dramatics in here. He says, Pharaoh's going to call you in 3 days.
There we go.
Now, why is Pharaoh going to call? Don't know at that first sentence. But Pharaoh's going to call you in 3 days. And then he's going to what? how does he describe that raising up? He's going to lift up your head. He's going to lift up your head. In other words, you're bowed down, and he's going to put his fingers here, lift up your head, and do what?
Give you back your job.
Give you back your job. So you're going to be buttling like you did before. Okay?
That's the resurrection
And-
story 3,000 years.
Well, in a sense it is, because the butler is going to be restored to his position, and the butler is happy, right? Woo, woo, woo! He's really good, and Joseph says, now when this happens, you got to make me a promise. And what promise does Joseph want the butler to make? Yeah. Now, when you get there, yeah, that's exactly right. You know, then they'll release military equipment. Yeah. When you get restored, you got to promise me to put a good word in to Pharaoh.
Whisper in his ear.
Yeah, whisper in his ear, tell Pharaoh. Of course, when you look at it, you know, the butler's going to tell Pharaoh, oh yeah, a guy told me about this. You know, Pharaoh say, oh, that's nice to know information. But that's a promise, right? The butler. All right. Now, the baker hears this and says, man, this sounds great, right? I am going to give my dream because clearly Joseph is giving out good interpretations. You know, this is like a fortune cookie. You know, it's a good. You never get a fortune cookie that says you will be hit by a bus. You know, later this afternoon. You know, it's always something either vague or good. You know, so I'm going to give him my. And what is the dream that the baker had? Well, but the dream doesn't sound all that bad. You know, because he is baking. He's now baking stuff, right? And he's got 3 baskets on his head, and the top basket is full of bread and honey buns and bear claws and, you know, it's what's that?
Cream sticks.
Cream sticks. I thought you said creamsicles, and I said no, that would be we kind of melt. But it's full of good. You know, great stuff. Hope Twinkies are up there, and Zingers, and, you know, doodahs, and all kinds of stuff. I don't know what a doodah is. But it's all up there. And since it's up on top, what's happening to it?
The birds.
The birds are eating it. Now, this sounds really good, you know, because I'm baking again. Give me my interpretation. And Joseph says,
3 baskets.
well, I got good news and bad news. Yeah, that's right. You're getting, well, it's even better than that. 3 days. You know, 3 days, you're going to be getting out of jail. And you know, Pharaoh is going to also lift up your head. He just will lift it up a little higher than the butler. How tall are you? Well, I'm about 5'9". Well, you're going to be now about 8'3" after Pharaoh lifts up your head. And the baker says, is there anybody else who can interpret dreams here? But what happens? Now, Joseph, this is not me speaking. This is God speaking. Okay? And so what happens?
Third day.
Well, Pharaoh, the 3rd day, we didn't know that. In the 3rd day, Pharaoh is what? Celebrating his birthday. You know, we didn't know that, right? And what do you want to do on your birthday?
Party.
You want to drink wine and you want a big cake, right? Okay. Yeah. So Pharaoh says, and some entertainment. So Pharaoh on his birthday decides to pardon, have a feast, and you know, feasts have open bars. And if you got an open bar, you need a butler, you know. So he restores the butler, and you know, since you also need some entertainment at a birthday party, he decides to
Have a pinata.
have a pinata.
Yeah, and hire the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. Now, what has happened in the interpretation was correct. The interpretation was correct. And so the butler is now doing his thing, you know, wearing a morning coat, you know, because I think his name is Jeeves, maybe. Jeeves. He was at, but when he starts working, what happens?
He forgets.
He forgot. Now, I think that's really important as part of the story, because it's not like he intentionally didn't mention, you know, that there was malice involved. There's no malice here. You know, he just forgot. There's a lot going on, you know. I mean, geez, you had
This God probably needed that time between to do some other things.
Well, you know, God is still involved in this, even if the guy forgets. You know, like I said, though, earlier, when you think about it, you know, even thinking of it logically, in the context of the story, you know, if the butler is newly restored, and he says, you know, Pharaoh, something was really interesting. I had a dream in prison that you were going to restore me to this position, and this guy told me, you know, I had this dream about, you know, grapes, and this guy said, you're going to restore me in 3 days. Isn't that something? And Pharaoh would have said, yeah. Yeah, that's right. You know, I mean, at best, Pharaoh's going to say, oh, well, that's certainly interesting. You know, so if he had said it, wouldn't have made a heck of a lot of difference then, right? So he forgets. Joseph is still in prison, right? Now, 2 years go by. 2 years go by. And Pharaoh is in his bed.
Did the baker just drop out of the picture there?
Gone. The baker is
8 foot tall.
toast. Yes. He is gone.
Get a big cask.
Yes. He is history. So the baker is gone. So Pharaoh is in his bed sleeping. Right? Yes?
I just told him, I said, you did understand the baker is dead, he hung him, and he said, why?
Why did they hang the baker? Don't know. Doesn't say. The point you know why it doesn't say? Why would they not want to mention the crimes?
Because that would reflect back on God.
Okay, I got two at the same time. If he gave crime, then some reader may say, well, this was worse than this. And it's not about crime. It's about Joseph's ability to interpret dreams. Even if he said they were both the same crime, now you got a new aspect. What they did was irrelevant. What was relevant is where the writer wants to focus our attention on the fact that Joseph has God with him, therefore God through Joseph can interpret dreams. And this also all of a sudden, because remember earlier Joseph had this dream about the sheaves of wheat and the stars in the sky, and you know even Jacob thought Joseph was being a jerk. You know, Joseph, just calm it down because you're saying I'm going to bow to you. You know, and that ain't going to happen. And there was no indication at that time that Joseph's dreams come true. So we could read that, and Joseph may look like a jerk, you know, in talking about this dream. There's no validity in Joseph's dreams at that point. But now the writer has established later in the story that Joseph, because God is with him, has the ability to interpret dreams. So now, this calls back that dream he had way back 3 chapters before. Maybe I need to think about this dream a little bit more that Joseph had that ticked off his brothers so much. Well, anyway, 2 years later, Pharaoh's in bed and he's doing this. Because what's happening? He is having a dream, and this is a bad dream. Yeah, well, yes. Too much partying.
Yes.
Too much hanging a bacon.
2 years ago.
Yeah. What is it? Because he has 2 dreams, right? What's the first dream? Okay, out of the Nile. So he's there standing by the Nile, and out of the Nile comes seven cows. And how do the cows look?
Great.
They are fat and they're happy. They're the kind of cows you see, in pictures that have the lines for spare rib,
Like Daisy.
rump roast. Yeah, all diagrammed on it. They're coming out and they are fat and they are sleek.
Mine's handsome.
They are handsome.
Handsome.
Remember, who had cow eyes? Leah. They look better than Leah. You'd have kissed one of these cows, Leah. All right, so they're looking good and they're eating grass and they seem really happy. And Pharaoh's saying, Yeah. Oh, then 7 more cows come out. And these cows are, they're gaunt and skinny. Their bones are, all showing. They got, they got flies all in their eyes and, mange on their hide. It's awful. They look awful.
They weren't praying.
They were not prime. No, they were, but they do something that is like a horror movie. What do? They open their mouths huge and they eat the big cows. The trouble is they eat the big cows.
Gold.
Cows are vegetables.
Sort of like the creeping terror. Yeah, maybe they kind of moved, and the cows kind of moved into their big mouths. Yes, exactly. So, and ate the cows, but the scrawny cows
Don't get that.
they look as bad as they did before.
They got worms.
And Pharaoh goes, "Arr!" Whew. That was bad. And he falls asleep again, and he has another dream. And what's his other dream?
7 has a grain.
He's looking at a field, right? And there are 7. Yes, and we're talking about wheat. There are 7 stalks, and I'll tell you that the head on the wheat. And we talked about it when we looked at all those agricultural parables. Remember? About seeds. When it says 100-fold. Your plan is to get 100-fold. This had like 1,000-fold. The heads of wheat are like this big. They're like been exposed to radiation. They're huge. They're glowing. They're enormous. And they're doing this. Well, no, they're not going, ooh. They're in the wind. They're in the wind. Jesus, that boy, ooh. They're not scary. What are you wearing, by the way? Is that a witch? No, I'm not. Oh, you got a witch there. All right.
Yeah, which? Cat?
All right. All right. So they're going like this. And then all of a sudden you got 7 more growing up. And they are, man, they are scrawny and look like they've been burned. They are awful. And you got these 7 awful ones and these 7 mutant, these huge ones. And what happens?
Same thing.
Same thing. And I don't know. You talk about horror movie. Somehow these heads eat. You know, it's sort of like the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. They just eat. You know, the other grain.
What did he have for dinner the night before?
Yeah. Oh man. Wheat. Yeah. Wheat and cow. Yeah, that's right. Maybe they should have. We've been drinking too much. That's the problem. So all of a sudden, he wakes up.
And he wants Joseph to
Well, no, not yet. Not yet. I've had these dreams. Now, dreams obviously mean something, right?
Yep.
Because this is after the time of Sigmund Freud, and people are now interpreting dreams, it has to mean something, right? And so, who would Pharaoh go to get answers?
Magician.
Goes to magicians, right? Okay, so he goes to magicians, and they're the wisest guys around. You know, and he goes, and they're, you know, in their room, and they're pulling rabbits out of hats, and you know, sawing people in half. You know, to be a magician trainee, you had to go through a lot of slaves with the sawing in half. You know, so they were, it took a while before you got the trick down, but they were just slaves. And so they're doing their thing, magician thing. Yeah. And he asks the head magician, that was named Copperfield, and says to him, "What interpret this dream?" And what's your dream? Well, it's about these 7 cows and you know, skinny and fat and these grains, and he says, "Man, you got me. I don't know." And you know, if he said, "Oh, I think it has to do with," and you're wrong. Yeah, you end up joining the bait. It is not good. So they say, I don't know what's going on. And Pharaoh is, you know, he's obsessing on this dream. And he says, I got to figure this dream out. And the butler says,
I know somebody.
The light bulb.
Yeah, right above his head. Only Egyptians didn't have light bulbs, it was a candle. Yeah, a candle comes up above his head, and he says,
I know somebody.
Eureka! I was wrong. I had promised this guy I would mention it, but now I remember. There's a guy in prison named
Jose.
Joseph, and he is really good with dreams, right? He is really good with dreams, and he'll be able to do it. So Pharaoh does what? Okay, sends for him, right? But before he sends for him, he's got to, because he's going for a Pharaoh.
Got to clean up.
Got to clean up a little bit. So, you know, Pharaoh, he takes a bath because he probably hasn't bathed in a long time.
Maybe shaves.
Yeah, shaves. Yeah,
His
gets his hair cut, combed, styled. Now he's looking more like the Donny Osmond we all know and love. And he goes to Pharaoh, right?
Yep.
And Pharaoh, he says, now what does Joseph say when he goes to Pharaoh?
It's not in me.
You know, again,
Not me.
it's not in me. It belongs to God. Yes. And Pharaoh says, well, I need to tell you. And Pharaoh tells him the dreams, right? And what does, how does Joseph interpret the dreams?
7 years.
Okay. All right. Now the 7. Okay. I'm going to tell you the interpretation. Joseph. I'm going to tell you the interpretation. Now it's from God, not from me. I'm just an instrument. The 7 fat cows and the 7 big heads of grain mean the same thing. Both dreams mean the same thing. So I'm going to take them together. 7 fat cows, 7 fat heads of grain have to do with 7 years, right, Chris? 7 years. But they're fat. What does that mean? Things, it's fat city. You know, things are going to be great in Egypt for 7 years. It is going to be wonderful. Okay? Well, what about the scrawny grain and the scrawny cows?
Then a recession happens.
Going to have a recession. You know, everything is cyclical. You know, we're going to have a recession. And the recession is going to be grounded in famine. You know, things, because it doesn't, you know, things go in cycles. You know, nothing is great forever. You know, it's the famine. And is the famine going to be bad? It is going to be really, really bad. Okay, it is going to be 7 years of. Now, this is, who has given Pharaoh this vision? Okay, God has. God has given Pharaoh this vision. So, you know, again, what the writer of the story is suggesting, and he did it with Potiphar, that Potiphar knew God was involved with Joseph. Same thing here. God, and it's not your gods. It is my God has given you this vision that I can understand because that same God is with me. Okay? So, what does Joseph say? But he doesn't stop there. You know, that's the interpretation of your dream. Joseph takes it a step further. You could view this as kind of a resume. Joseph says what to him?
I've done this before.
Well, if I were you, this is what I would do. And what is it that he would suggest? What does Joseph suggest?
You're very prepared, strong overseer.
Okay, you need a guy to be in charge. For one, you know, Pharaoh, you're a nice guy. You really are a good guy. But you are, I mean, anybody that has dreams about cows and corn, you know, you're not the guy to be put in charge. You needed a good overseer. Well, no, I'm not. Just an overseer. Just an overseer. And this good overseer should do what?
Prevent that from happening.
Well, can't prevent the famine, but can do what? Prepare for it. And you got a great, and this we don't ever follow in any country. Well, we don't. The British, other countries do, but we don't. When times are good, times are really going to be good. What should you be doing? Saving your stuff. Don't go out and spend it. Save it. You know. And so while it's good, build up your storage. Yeah, you build up your granaries because bad times are going to come. And if you got grain in your granary, rather than just eating really well for 7 years, you know, then when the famine comes, you'll have enough grain to get through the hard years. See, we don't do that, you know. When we have surpluses, like in the government, what do?
Spend it.
Tax cuts! You know, tax cuts! So we keep a big deficit. But that's what Joseph said. This is good economic planning here. Now he says, this is what I would recommend you do. Because it makes what?
Sense.
Duh. It makes sense. But I don't know who you could hire to do this.
Yeah, I've been in prison all these years.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody who could implement the exact plan that I'm suggesting.
Maybe.
Who would be best to do that?
Maybe somebody to interpret dreams.
Yeah, I could suggest somebody. You know, there's a guy that I share a cell with, you know, that's training lice, you know, to jump through a little hoop. You know, he might be able to handle it. You know, or, you know, your magician over there, maybe he can pull a rabbit out of the hat. Or
Maybe me.
a good
Just saying.
a good Mormon boy.
Just,
Maybe.
just
Just saying. Just saying. And Pharaoh says,
Voila.
wow, I like this guy, right? I like this guy. And when Pharaoh says, I like this guy, everybody around him says,
Me too.
I like him too. I like him too. Yeah.
I like
Oh
him.
yeah. I was thinking of that myself. And yeah. Why does Pharaoh like the guy? The Spirit of God. So, what does Pharaoh do?
Give him a ring.
Okay, gives him a ring. Okay, gives him a new set of clothes. Sets him above everything. Gives him a gold chain. He looked,
Gives him a key.
he was kind of gangsta
Yeah.
before it was popular. You know, gave him a grill. You know, so Joseph started doing this a lot. Okay, so Joseph does that, gives Joseph all this stuff, puts Joseph in charge. He is now like vice pharaoh. He's in charge.
Like Pence.
No, well, I don't know what you compare to, but he's in charge. And Pharaoh is just sitting there, taking it easy. And while the prosperity happens, right? And they start growing stuff and all kinds of abundance, and Joseph starts doing what?
Saving.
Okay, he starts. But before he starts saving, what happens with Joseph?
Pharaoh gives him a name.
Gives him an Egyptian name, okay, because he's got a name tag. So he's got an Egyptian name tag, and he gets married, and he marries.
Can't say her name.
Yeah, we don't care, but she is the daughter of the high priest. Mm-hmm. And what's that?
Now he's got class.
Now he's got class with a capital K. He is really good. And his wife bears him. We don't have a barren woman. That was just kind of shocking, because she bears him 2 sons. Right? One of them he names Manasseh, and the other one he names Ephraim. Manasseh and Ephraim. Okay? Manasseh the oldest, Ephraim is the youngest. So Joseph is now a family man. He's got a good Egyptian name. He's got a good Egyptian wife. He's got some good Egyptian kids. He's starting to look Egyptian. He works on his accent so he doesn't sound so Jewish. He has a kind of an Egyptian accent. And what happens during the years of prosperity? Year of peace.
Get it up all
Man, he is. Now, people aren't starving. But they're not living high on the hog. So he's gathering grain, right? And building granaries, right? And so people are fine. And we get the idea that these are small farmers, right? Pharaoh's there, and these are small farmers, and Joseph is collecting, this stuff from these small farmers and putting them in these big granaries. Okay? So he has these kids. After 7 years, what happens? Famine. Okay. Now, famine is not good. But he's been preaching to the people. Save your grain. Don't eat it all. Save your grain. And so when the famine comes, evidently some of these small farmers are able to survive, right? For a while. And then the farmers run out of grain, right? But what has Joseph done? He's built huge government-owned granaries, right? With government grain. And the people come up and say, well, Joseph, we've run out of the grain we sold. So,
We can sell it back.
And Joseph says,
Good idea.
good idea. But we need to make a contract. And what's the contract that he makes? He makes a contract, ends up making a contract, that if the Egyptians will give Pharaoh their land, Pharaoh will give them, and that may be in the next chapter. But he gives them, is it?
I think.
Yeah, gives them, it makes a deal that if you give the land, I'll give you grain. So all you have to do is turn over the land, turn over the deeds to the land, so Pharaoh will own the land. And you'll have plenty to eat. And the people say, hot dog, we'll do it.
But he wants a favor.
Well, that's the deal.
He wants dirt on them.
Well, that's the deal. You can continue to work the land. You know, you can, you eat what you grow and stuff. But Pharaoh will
Oh, no.
own the land. And that works for a while. And then they run out of grain again. And Joseph says, well, we got all this grain in these government granaries. You've given us, we've sold it to you for the land. What's the only thing you have left that we might do? You. So you agree to become slaves of Pharaoh, and we'll give you grain. And the Egyptians who are hungry say,
Okay. No choice.
okay. So what ends up happening through these 7 years?
Pharaoh
Oh,
gained a
Pharaoh.
lot of power.
Yeah, well, and Pharaoh ends up what? Owning.
Everything.
And what does Pharaoh do?
Nothing.
Nothing. It's all been Joseph. And why has Joseph been able to do this? Yes, Sandy, because God is with him. Because God is with him. And because of that, what Joseph does prospers. Okay? So Joseph is now, do you think Pharaoh likes Joseph's management these 14 years? Yeah. And remember, 7 is a perfect number. That's why it's 7. Just like Jacob worked for 7 years. Perfect number. So, Pharaoh is happy. Joseph is happy. Whom have we not seen lately?
The guard.
The other boys and Dad back home in Canaan.
You haven't
Right?
seen the guard either. The guard, the man that was in charge of the.
Well, what
He's out of the story now.
he's out of the story. Potiphar will never show up again. The jailer will never show up again. They're out of the story. But Jacob and the other boys, the 11 sons, they haven't been mentioned. And what does the writer tell us? Because this writer, is better than what I've done in sort of retelling the story. Because the writer includes this. What did the writer say about the famine? It was all over the world. It was a global famine. And which means, even if we're not paying attention, who's going to be affected by this famine?
Jacob.
Jacob is going to be affected. Okay, so the writer drops that in. And it's not integral to the part of the story that we're in, because it's all about Egypt. But he drops it in so that he could come back to it later. He can come back to it later. And that's what we're going to be looking at next week. When Joseph, because we got this Joseph story here, next week we're going to look at Joseph and the reappearance of his brothers. His older and younger brother, because his youngest brother, the younger brother, is named Benjamin. And if Joseph, the son of his favorite wife, the child of his old age, was his favorite and now is dead, there's one even younger than Joseph who is also the son of his favorite wife, named Benjamin. And so Benjamin is going to hold a special place in Jacob's heart. So we're going to have the brothers reintroduced to the story next week. Thank you. Let's have a word of prayer. Lord God, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to look at your word. Remind us that throughout all this plotting this intricate story that your presence is constantly involved. And even though you don't make an appearance as in speaking to anybody, we know that you're behind the scenes driving the story. So remind us that as we go about our living, you are behind the scenes driving our stories as well. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen.
I got a question.